Dude, 177,000 miles, all original powertrain hardware. I'm so proud of you, Porsche.
Brothers, sisters, priests, rabbis, all of the above and more. Good news. I just heard a big old semi-truck pull up, which can only mean one thing, that the next water-cooled restoration customer car has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go take delivery of Mr. 305996. Let's do it.
Well, here it is, everybody. Mr. 305996. Now, why is it called that? Well, the owner of this car, his name is George, just shipped this car from Miami, hence the name Mr. 305996, because this is the 305996. Dale. George reached out to me a couple months ago and said, David, I have this 2000 model year 996. I am the original owner. It has 177,000 miles on the clock. I daily drove it for many, many years, but I'm getting up there in years and I would like to have this car mechanically restored to be able to pass this car down to my children. Now, if that doesn't tug right at your heartstrings, I don't know what does, because that is the true epitome of the love of cars and everything that revolves around it, sharing the passion with friends and family. And this is a perfect example. This is a car that George no doubt worked very hard for, purchased brand new in 2000, drove the heck out of the car, loved it, maintained it extremely well. Now he wants to pass it on to his children and share that passion with them. That is super duper cool. And it means so much to me that George reached out to me and was willing to send his car from Miami, Florida, all the way up to Central Ohio to water-cooled restoration, thousands of miles away. The fact that he trusts me, some guy he's never even met in person, to work on his baby that he's owned now for 25 years, that he's now going to pass on to his children, that they will own for many, many years. That means the world to me. So thank you, George. I only hope that we can exceed your expectations with all the work that I'm gonna be doing on this car. And I'm honored to be able to take on that task for you of getting this thing mechanically restored. So with that, what do you say we get right into it?
Pull back, drop in, and just smack the lip. Bah!
All right, so just a little more about this car. By the way, LaCroix flavor of the day, pamplemousse, or however you say it. I don't know. It's grapefruit. It's really good. I like this flavor. 2000 Porsche 911 Carrera. Now, this is a Tiptronic car. So no hate from anybody. I don't want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it. It's all about the love. Like I said, this thing has 177,000 miles on the clock, and George daily drove this every single day, hence the term daily driver, for many, many years, which is how it racked up that kind of mileage. So just walking around this car, I am absolutely mind blown at the condition of this thing. I've seen 50,000 mile 996s that aren't in the same condition as this car. I mean, sure, it's got a handful of like dings on the front bumper where the clear coat's kind of coming off. I think the front end has kind of been repainted before, maybe, I think. But again, you'll have that. This car is a driver, and it was for many, many years. George has very clearly done a good job making sure that this car has been kept up on maintenance-wise. I know he's done the IMS bearing. I know he's done a handful of other, fairly large items in the drivetrain to make sure that this thing stays in good running condition. But it's never had a deep major service done to the engine as far as I know. So, of course, that, in addition to several other things, is what we're going to be doing while the car is here now. But exterior things aside, one place that we can look at that becomes increasingly apparent that this car has been well maintained is the interior. Let's take a quick look at that. All right there, jazzy gals. Let's take a quick look at this interior. Now, I know it's kind of darker than my soul in here, but as far as I can tell, this upholstery is original. All of the same like stitching patterns are still in place on the seat, so I don't have any reason to believe that they've ever been recovered. But I feel like these things have to have been recovered because they're in such good shape. It's mind-blowing to me that they are just the way they are. Additionally, when you just look around the dash and the center console, all of the touch points, the things that you are in contact with every single time you drive the car are in exceptional shape. Steering wheel, wow. Sure, it's got some wear on it in several spots, but you'll have that. You'll have that with the 50,000 mile car. Shifter, there's no like major, I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, it looks very nice. Overall, this is just fantastic. The interiors on these cars are definitely what begin to really show age with more mileage. And this car has been just so nicely maintained or updated throughout the years. Either way, George has definitely put a lot of work into making sure that this car stays looking the way it is. The freaking spoiler even works. That failed on my 911 years ago. And here's this car 1 year older with 60,000 more miles. Huh? Alrighty, now driving the 305 996. Quick initial test drive. Now, of course, I always like to do this just to get a quick baseline. So this car feels wonderful. It drives so good. I am so proud of the 996 as a generation of 911 for driving the way that this car does after 177,000 miles. Granted, no doubt it took a lot of work and money on George's part to keep it that way, no doubt, but the fact that this thing is so dead quiet on the interior, there are no creaks, there's nothing weird, there's no strange sounds, nothing bizarre going on. This thing's driving straight as an arrow. It feels nice, it's nice and smooth. It feels so good in that corner right there. And I do know that the bushings of the lower control arms in the rear of the car are both bad. We're gonna be replacing them in the process. And if this car drives that good with bushings that are completely shot in the rear, this thing's only gonna drive even more incredible once it's all put together really nicely. Dude, 177,000 miles, all original powertrain hardware. I'm so proud of you, Porsche. Why does everyone dump on these cars like crazy? It is so unwarranted. Remember how people always act like these things are just total glass? Yeah, well, they're not. So, I'm happy to report that I'm not hearing any crazy weird sounds or anything. This car drives straight as an arrow. It's just a matter of getting the engine mechanically sorted with regards to its internals, refreshing a lot of the things that need refreshed, plus several other items which we will talk about. But hey, I'm so proud of this thing. I'm just proud of Porsche as a brand and George as a Porsche owner. This thing is just in fantastic shape, and I cannot wait to get this thing nice and mechanically restored for George, because no doubt we're working with a really nice foundation here, and it's only gonna go up from here. Okay, well, here we are back at the Funhead headquarters. Everything went really smoothly on the test drive. Car drives very nicely. Yeah, so it does have a couple of fault codes. One of which is the check engine light, and the other is the ABS light. So went ahead and pulled out our Durametric to be able to read what the heck is going on inside the DME and ABS module. So first of all, inside the DME, aka the ECU, aka the engine computer, we have a fault code for camshaft adjustment bank 1 below limit value. That is an indication that our Vericam adjuster is not actuating properly. And additionally, we have a fault code for vehicle speed sensor that is related to the ABS problem. When we flip over to reading fault codes for the ABS module, we can go ahead and see that right rear speed sensor signal implausible, right rear speed sensor either shorted to ground, open circuit, what have you. It's basically saying that something is wrong with that sensor. So that's something we'll have to pay special attention to and do a little bit of further diagnosis to see if we can actually find the problem. I don't necessarily just want to go throwing a speed sensor at it just because maybe that's not it. It might be a problem further, upstream of the circuit. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of diagnosis and see if we can't find that exact issue. So the car has been test driven to get a nice baseline. Everything looks pretty good. Although I did need to mention that we did smell kind of a hot brake smell after getting back to the old water-cooled restoration headquarters. We'll have to look into that a little bit closer later. DME and ABS control modules have been scanned for their respective codes. We kind of have that baseline of information as well. Now it's time to go ahead, get this thing up on the lift, and take a good, thorough look underneath this car. All right, now ladies and gentlefolks, before we begin doing our inspection, I'm just going to start by dropping the oil out. That way it can be draining while we do our inspection. Okay. Boom. And of course, I always take a sample so we can send it off to Blackstone. Notice how I didn't take the sample immediately after dropping the drain plug. I want to kind of get a sample from the middle of the drain. I know there's many different schools of thought on that, but my thinking is, you know, you don't want to get the very start, you don't want to get the very end, get it somewhere kind of in the middle. And let's go ahead and get our filter taken down as well. So, I think the name of the game with George's car is oil leaks. And he had mentioned that. He had several kind of larger oil leaks. And we can definitely see that when we look at the front side of the oil pan here. It also appears that the valve covers are leaking in several spots and the timing chain tensioners. It's honestly hard to tell at this point if that's the leading edge of the sump pan sealing improperly or if that is a leak that's draining down from the rear main seal, but there's honestly not that much oil coming from up near where the engine and transmission made up. So I'm kind of thinking that is the sump. But either way, all of our oil leaks will be remedied in this process because we're going to be replacing all of those sealing points, O-rings, gaskets, crush washers, etc., etc. So she's got leaks, but not for long. Oil leaks aside, this thing looks immaculate. We're missing the frontmost undercover for whatever reason. There's normally an undercover that goes exactly right here. The suspension is new. It has relatively new Bilstein struts on all four corners. And overall, there is a lack of one major thing for a 177,000 mile car, and that is, coming from a guy who's lived in the Midwest his entire life, corrosion. There is no corrosion on this entire car. Now, of course, most people don't drive their Porsches on salty roads anyway, even here in the Midwest, but this thing is immaculate. This thing has absolutely no corrosion. Even the exhaust flange bolts are perfect. They're freaking perfect. You people not from the Midwest might be saying that's rust. That ain't rust. Look at the threads. Those puppies are absolutely perfect. Now, kind of on the suspension chassis note, the brakes do need to be addressed at all four corners. The rear brake rotors are below minimum thickness and the front rotors are at minimum thickness. They are nicely lipped on all four corners, of course. And the pads wear material is as thick as the backing plate. That's always an indication that it's time to get new pads as well. And in fact, the pad wear sensors for the front pads are starting to get worn into. That means those pads are at end of life. In addition to that, of course, like I mentioned, we have our lower control arms for the rear. The bushings are no good anymore. And I found the source of our ABS sensor issue. It seems like maybe Thor worked on this car at one point and just beat the crap out of this connection right here. But the sensor is actually unplugged entirely because the plug on the chassis side actually is completely destroyed. So we're actually gonna have to do some custom wiring to get that remedied and connected back up. So I had mentioned that we had some kind of hot brake smell when we first came back from our test drive. Well, the reason for that actually, I think, is twofold. One, well, of course, during the test drive, I did some kind of harder stops to actually feel what the brakes feel like, see if I could feel anything kind of wrong with the braking system overall. And so I think as a result, the thinner pads heated up faster than they normally would have because there's a lot less material there. But some were heating up more than others. The first couple hard stops that I did, I felt a pretty hard pull to the right, which means that the right side brakes were working harder than the left. Now that would at first indicate that one of the calipers is potentially not operating correctly, but I think in this case, they both are. Both the ones on the left side are operating just fine. I think they're just being a little lazy. So what I'm gonna recommend is not only swapping out the pads and rotors, but we'll do a nice thorough brake fluid flush as well. It's possible that we've got some air up in these calipers if they haven't been flushed in a while, which would explain why they were being lazier than the ones on the right. So Hot brakes, probably because some are working harder than others, and because the pad material, and rotor material for that matter, is a lot thinner than it should be. So after inspection, we can see that we've got a decent amount of work to do on this thing to be able to bring it back around. We mentioned all the suspension and brake items, but in addition to that, George is going to have me do a full upper cylinder head restoration as well, wherein we do timing chain guides for those pesky Variocam pads and the regular timing chain guides, plus lifters, plus all the other while you're in there. So it's gonna be quite the extensive job, but it will be so awesome to see this thing get completely refreshed in so many different areas of the car. So friends, family, friends of family, family of friends, we've driven the car, we've got it up on the lift, we've done full inspection, we pulled the oil out of it, we've only kind of just dipped our toe into the things that we're going to be doing with this super awesome 305 996. We're gonna go ahead and call it here for today, because in the next episode, we're gonna be dropping this engine, we're gonna be taking apart the cylinder heads, and we're going to see just how bad those timing chain guides are after 177,000 miles. To be determined, to be determined. So if you enjoyed this episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button, and please subscribe if you wanna see what's gonna end up happening with the rest of this 305 996 and find out what kind of condition those timing chain guides are actually in. And if you wanna see this thing, of course, back on the road in a few episodes, driving down the road, nicely, mechanically restored. So, thank you again so much for being here today. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, you, I'm looking right at you, and I will see you all in next week's episode. Later.
Drop in and just smack the.